Hello and welcome to the session of the Water, Energy, Food Nexus and Sustainable Development. And this is a course that I would like to introduce you to different challenges, different topics related to the unsustainable development. And then later on, we will be moving to what is the sustainable development and how we should achieve it. We will also discuss different initiatives like the UN Sustainable Development Goals or the SDGs. In this course also we will be tackling water challenges, energy challenges and food challenges. And not only that, the interrelationship between these three scarce and important resources. And we will also discuss different technologies to deal with water, energy, and food challenges. We will also see later on or discuss later on achieving the WEF nexus or the water, energy, food nexus at local, regional, and global level. And finally, we will close this course by bringing WEF nexus and sustainable development together through assessment indicators in order to see how we can achieve sustainable development when we focus on the water, energy, food nexus. The first start to understand what is sustainable development about, I thought of starting by introducing what is unsustainable development. So to understand sustainable development, we have to know what is the unsustainable development. Unsustainable development is what we are doing actually to secure our life but deteriorate other resources, to secure our water and then deteriorate water, to irrigate our agriculture and pollute our water resources. So water pollution is one of the impacts of the unsustainable development that's happening in many locations worldwide. Water pollution could be due to adding fertilizers to the irrigation water and taking the drainage of irrigation water, disposing it somewhere in the river, back to the river, or just as you can see in the picture, just throwing everything in the water that we are going to drink later on. So unsustainable development is going to affect us at the end. So there is a closed loop that we dispose our garbage in the water and then we treat it to drink it later on. I have one example here that 2 million tons of sewage and industrial and agricultural waste are discharged into the world's water. So every day 2 million tons of sewage is disposed to agriculture, disposed to the world's water, the water available on the earth. Soil deterioration is another effect or another impact of our unsustainable activities. Soil deterioration happening because of wrong practice of agriculture. Soil deterioration is happening due to our changing the land use. There are many reasons that are affecting the soil deterioration. One of them here, what you see here, soil salinity. When we do agriculture in an unsustainable way, like, for example, not organic agriculture, but traditional agriculture by adding too much fertilizers to our agriculture land, when we use water intensively that has a certain salinity and then the water evaporates, so the salt stays at the top of the picture, as you can see, at the top of the soil, as you can see in the picture here. This white color is accumulation of salt at top layer of our agricultural land. So we use irrigation and the water of the irrigation includes salt. So the salt is accumulating in the top layer of the soil. When the water evaporates, you see the white color, which is just salt. And after a couple of years of having the salt, either you wash it and you clean your soil again, or it's not possible to use it again for agriculture, and then you are deteriorating the soil. Soil deterioration also has different shapes, like degradation of soil results in the loss of critical function and ecosystem. So the soil has a certain life. The soil has a microorganism that's functioning and making it fertile soil. When we add too much chemicals to the soil, we kill that. We disturb the ecological cycle. And sometimes we kill all these microorganisms and transfer a live soil to a killed or dead soil. So we have to take these issues into consideration. And function include production, and also that the soil has a certain function. Our food is coming from the soil. Our fuels are coming from the soil. So all these resources are having something directly or indirectly to our soil. So the degrading soils cover approximately 24% of the global land area. So we deteriorated 35 million quadrat kilometer globally. Fossil fuel is also another source of our CO2 emission that's affecting the global change. Here you can see that the concentration of the CO2 emission in the air was 280 parts per million before the industrial era, and now, or at least in the 2014, it reached 397 parts per million CO2 emission. So you see the increase because of the industrial revolution is huge that happened before and after the industrial revolution. Air pollution, of course, is one of the impacts of such CO2 emission that we are producing. And this number is actually surprising, that 98% of the cities in low income or low and middle income countries with more than 100,000 inhabitants do not meet the WHO air quality guidelines. WHO is the known World Health Organization, which is giving indicators of the quality of air, and this number or this literature is saying 98% of the cities that having low and middle income are not meeting these expectations. That has this means that the people living in a very bad air quality in many of the countries, even the high income countries, the modern countries, are having also bad air quality. What you can see here, that in high income countries, that percentage decreases from 98% to 56%. But still, there are many cities are suffering from bad air quality. Water scarcity is a vital issue. And water is, of course, there is no life without water. What we can see here, that water shortage is affecting 88 developing countries. So 88 developing countries are suffering from water shortage. Over the next 25 years, the number of affected people globally will increase 4 times. So you can imagine that if today 88 developing countries are suffering from water shortage, in only 25 years, this number will increase 4 times. If we don't change our behavior, if we don't change our type of unsustainable development and move to sustainable development, as we will be discussing in the coming sessions about water scarcity and also water technologies that can be used to assure water security. Half the hospital beds in the world are occupied by patients that having diseases related to water. So it's not only about the quantity of water, it's about the quality of water. And we showed you, or I showed you in the first slides, that water quality is also affected by the unsustainable development. So the water quality is affecting the health. That's why we can see here half the hospital beds in the world are occupied by patients with diseases related to water. Slum areas is also one of the impacts of the unsustainable development. How? I give you one example. If we are using intensive pesticides and chemicals for increasing the agricultural productivity, with the time, over the years, the productivity of the soil is decreased, as we mentioned before. And if the productivity of the soil is decreased with the time, the farmer comes at a certain time and not getting the expected product or the expected income from his farm area. And then he is not able to afford his family. He is not able to cover the cost of his life expenses. So the agriculture is not profitable anymore. That's why they leave the agricultural land and start moving from the villages to the city, looking for a new job opportunity, looking for a new income of the life, and being very poor person or family in the city, then they start finding any place to live in, creating random houses or creating the poor houses that you can see here. And this is, of course, building new slum area. So this is an impact or an example that shows you the impact of unsustainable development, deteriorating agriculture, deteriorating the income of the agricultural land, which force the farmers to migrate from the village to the city looking for a new opportunity, as one of the examples. So a little bit on 2014, it is estimated that 54% of the world's population is living in urban areas. Okay, but more than 1 billion people have been added to urban areas globally in the 14 years since 2000. So between 2000 and 2014, 1 billion people have been added to the urban areas through migration from the village to the city. The number of people living in slum conditions is 863 million, in contrast to 760 million in 2000 and 650 million in 1990. So you see, regardless of the numbers, the number of people living in slum conditions is increasing dramatically with the time. So these are the sources of, these are the numbers coming from UN Habitat, one of the important organizations dealing with slum areas. So we have to do something in order to reduce migration from the village to the city, from the rural areas to urban areas. And this can be only done through increasing the agriculture productivity and making more benefit for the farmers through subsidies, through organic type of agriculture, through agriculture intensification as one of the driving forces to encourage farmers to stay and continue being a farmer as before. And this can be done only through sustainable development and sustainable agriculture. One of the significant impacts that we started to feel is climate change. And climate change, we will be discussing this later on in another session. So there is a session about climate change. Just wanted to give you an overview that what you see here are our activities: transport, agriculture, heating, industry, etc. And our activities, all our activities, plus the land use, changing the land use from agriculture, from green to urban areas, deforestation, removing trees, all of that is increasing the CO2 emission. And the CO2 emission is, of course, here increasing the greenhouse gases effect. And the greenhouse gases effect here affecting the temperature increase at the global level and also melting the ice cap. And increasing the temperature, melting ice cap, making many changes here, like increasing the sea level, etc., and changing in the precipitation, changing in the ocean circulation, etc. And all of that is causing different disasters like drought, like floods, like biodiversity losses, like many changes. So very quickly, that we have here our human activities making the main characteristics for climate change, and climate change is affecting our life through different disasters. So this is the interrelationship between our human activities and the disasters, drought, floods, biodiversity losses, different diseases, spreading different diseases in a faster way. So all these are impact of our human activities that we started some years ago. We are just receiving the impact now. Climate change, as I said, it will be one of the sessions, so we will go through even this picture again, but in more details. We do care about the GDP per capita, and you can see here the GDP per capita is increasing in China, this red color, India, that green color. That's fine, that's important, and we all hope that the GDP will be increasing in the developing countries, but not in the cost of the environment. And also the GDP is reflecting the economic growth. But the GDP per capita is important, what you see here in the picture. But not only the GDP per capita is important, reflecting the GDP on the services provided for the population is also very significant and important. So in order for the sustainable to be development and not unsustainable development. So to make the sustainable development, we have to follow such a definition. So this is the typical and standard definition of sustainable development, which is a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So this is the basics of sustainable development, that you can live a good life today, but you have to make sure that the next generation will have the same conditions or similar conditions in order also to afford a good quality of life. So in here, one of the cases, just an example of Tunisia that shows you economic growth is one thing, but also sustainability is much more than only economic growth. You see here the GDP. The GDP is not bad, between 6 and 4.2 at certain time, and then came the people at a certain time in 2010. We started the huge revolution because they are not satisfied of what's going on from the economy. I mean, because the economy does not mean that this economy is reflected as services for the people. It could be GDP, and this money is going to a small group, but most of the population are suffering from other things. So the economic dimension should be reflected on the social dimension and providing the services for the people. The same here for Egypt. I mean, Egypt, you can see 6% GDP, 7%, even reaching very close to 8%. But then in 2011, there was also a revolution for the people, mainly because of the economic situation, and the people are not getting the services like good schools, good health services, transportation system, all of that. So the economic growth should be reflected on services for the people, for the human being. That's why sustainability is about 3 pillars. The economy is one of them. The society is the services that I mentioned, the education, the capacity building, the lifelong learning, the quality of life, the education, the health, all of that, transportation, all of that should be reflected from the economic growth. So it's not about economic is going well, but the money is going to a small group. The money should be reflected for the wider population. And all of that should be done keeping the environment and protecting the environment and not depleting and not exhausting our resources. So when we have the 3 pillars, then we can talk about achieving sustainable development. But if we do the development and even reflect it on the people and ignoring the environmental dimension, then our development will not sustain. When it comes to after hundreds or thousands of years, there will be a time that there will be no development because the water is polluted, the air is polluted, the soil is polluted, and then you cannot continue your life. But if you ignore the social dimension, if you ignore the people and just talk all the time about economic growth, the GDP, and then at a certain time, the development will collapse because the people cannot carry, and that's what we call the dead end. And the dead end, when you continue your economic growth, but the people are not able to continue with you because they are not receiving the health care, they are very ill, they are having slum areas, they have no education, they have no health, they have no services, and then they start protesting because this is almost a dead end for the population. So in order to summarize this part, development is about the three pillars: the social, economic, and the ecology or the environment, and all of them, they have to be balanced in order to talk about achieving sustainable development. So development should be inclusive, should be taking special care of the poor. There should be strategies to meet these demands of the people, and it should be collaborative, so we should be collaborating together. We should also change our consumption and production in order to meet the challenges of the sustainable development. All these topics, all these terminologies will be discussed throughout this course, and we will be covering that in the next slides or the next sessions when we talk about SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much, and I will see you soon in the next session.